Hi, Peter here. In this tutorial, I'll be demonstrating how you can add a new checklist template to your Compliance Master account. This is a fairly straightforward process, but there are a number of features you might want to familiarise yourself with before you get started. Creating your own checklist templates will enable you to assess and manage your organisation's compliance with an expanded range of standards, regulations and processes. I'll also be demonstrating how you can save a lot of time and effort adding a new checklist template to your account by cloning an existing checklist template. So let's get started. For this demonstration, let's assume we want to create a new checklist template for the Australian and New Zealand standard 4801. This is a popular standard which is often used to carry out external accreditation audits on an organisation's occupational health and safety management system, but it can also be used for internal audits. The first thing we need to do is register this standard on the system. To do this, go to the Settings module and click on the Compliance Reference icon. Here you'll find a list of the current standards and regulations already registered against your account. To add a new compliance reference, click on the Add button in the top right hand corner of the page and enter the standard's name together with a general description of its contents and purpose. Next, you need to align the terminology that will be used to construct your checklist with those used in your standard and with your business requirements. This is done by filling in the following fields. The first field defines the label you want to give to those entities that will be assessed with your template. In our example, we'll just refer to them as organisations, but you could also use contractor, department, or facility depending on your requirements. In the next field, you get to define what you want to call your checklist. For example, rather than calling it a checklist, you might want to call it a compliance list. Again, this is completely up to you and your business requirements. The following three fields are used to align your checklist terminology with your compliance references terminology, or in this case standard. Level 2 is used to define what you want to call your primary headings. For our example, we'll call them sections, but again, you might want to use divisions, parts, or segments, depending on how they're defined in the compliance reference. In the same way, Level 3 is used to define the label given to the compliance requirements that sit under Level 2. I'll stick with the term compliance requirements, but I could also use regulations, actions or specifications, depending on what's used in the standard. Next, Level 4 defines the label given to the assessment criteria, which is used to determine whether the compliance requirements listed at Level 3 have been achieved or not. Once again, I'll stick with the term criteria, but you could also use evidence, measurements, or supporting data depending on your requirements. Having saved your compliance reference details onto the system, you are now ready to create as many checklist templates as you like based on this particular standard or regulation. To add a new checklist template, first open the Checklist module. Here you'll find a list of templates currently registered to your account. To add a new template, simply click on the Add button in the top right hand corner of the page. Next, give your new checklist a unique name and select the appropriate compliance reference. Finally, enter some details about your checklist, including how it will be used, then click Save. Now you're ready to start filling in the contents of your checklist. Start by adding a major section heading by clicking on the Add Section button. Next, give this new section a name. For our example, the first section of Standard 4801 is named Occupational Health and Safety Policy, so this is what we'll name the first section in our checklist. To start entering the compliance requirements for this section, click on the adjacent button and enter the details directly from the standard. In our example, the first compliance requirement listed under Section 1 is that an organisation must have an authorised occupational health and safety policy. You can keep on adding the other compliance requirements for this section now or leave it to later. The next step is to select the assessment criteria that will be used to determine whether each compliance requirement has been achieved. But before you can do this, you must add the relevant assessment criteria to your database. This will enable you to share this criteria across multiple compliance requirements, which can be a big time saver when it comes to constructing your checklist and making future changes. To add assessment criteria to your database, open the Criteria module and click on the Add Criteria button. Next, enter a short description, making sure it's structured in the form of a question to the relevant assessor or auditor. Before you start constructing your checklist, I strongly recommend you take the time to step through your compliance reference and define exactly how you want each compliance requirement verified. That way you don't have to waste time skipping in and out of the software when it comes time to entering your compliance criteria. You can do it all at once. For example, the first question you might ask in relation to an organisation having an authorised OH&S policy is, does the document exist? Next, click on which answer options you want displayed under your criteria and a more detailed description of the criteria, including any instructions that might help the assessor or auditor deliver an accurate compliance result. Once you've done this, there are 5 additional fields that you can use to help align your checklist terminology with your business requirements and compliance reference. The first option enables the assessor to add supporting assessment notes and comments alongside each criteria. The second option enables them to add improvement notes and recommendations. The third option, to attach and upload supporting compliance documents. The fourth option, to add hyperlinks to online files and documents. And the fifth option, to attach a photograph of the criteria. Once you've entered all your assessment criteria into the database, it's just a matter of going back to your checklist template, clicking on the Add Criteria button alongside each compliance requirement, and selecting the appropriate assessment criteria. Keep on building your checklists like this until you have entered all your compliance requirements and associated criteria for each section, and making sure you select Save as you go. If for any reason you want to change the layout of your checklist, just click on the relevant section, compliance requirement or criteria, and drag it to where you want it. It's that simple. You can also save a lot of time and effort adding new checklists to your system by cloning an existing template, then making the necessary changes. To do this, simply open the Checklist module, click on the Clone Checklist button, select the appropriate compliance reference and the checklist you want to clone, give it a unique name and description, and select Save. Then it's just a matter of opening the Clone Checklist template and making the necessary changes. This completes our tutorial on how to add a new assessment template to your Compliance Master account. If you have any questions about this video or Compliance Master in general, make sure to enter them below, or if you'd like to receive further information about Compliance Master tutorials, make sure to click on the subscribe button.